talk about squat mechanics part 2.
Yes.
Right?
Hi everybody. So welcome to part 2 squat talk. Today we're going to talk about, so last time we were here we covered a little bit of something that can affect your squat at the level of the hip, glute med weakness. Sandra did a fantastic demonstration of one of the isolation exercises that physiotherapy or chiropractors might prescribe for you. Today we're going to go a little bit lower down. We're going to talk about ankle mobility, or something that can really impact a person's form and ability to kind of hold and maintain a position. You may know you have tight ankles, you might not know. But basically we would refer to it as like limited dorsiflexion at the ankle, and we're going to show a quick test that you can do at home just to kind of give a bit of a check to see if your dorsiflexion would be adequate for squatting. And if it's not, a couple of stretches and or modifications you can do to a squat exercise to help you maintain better posture.
So how would I know if my dorsiflexion is limited? How would the everyday person?
Well, first off, you would say, how would I know is my dorsiflexion limited, which shows that you have knowledge of the thing. But no, no, it's good. Yeah, well, if you're so if you have if you're basically tight, like bringing your knee over your foot.
Right.
A simple test you can do is actually to use a wall. Now, you don't have to use a fancy physio wall or chiro wall, like a really expensive one. You can use any straight surface kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But you come up to it, and basically the test is you have to keep a foot flat on the wall, or flat on the floor, I should say.
Yeah.
And you should be able to touch the wall with your kneecap. And then if you successfully do it, you can slide your foot back a little bit.
Right. And
then repeat. And basically you want to go to the limit where you're just starting to feel, like just to the point where you're starting to feel the heel want to come up off the ground. That's your distance basically, and then you measure that distance. And ideally you want to have at least 7 centimeters between your toe and the base of the wall.
Okay, let's have a look at that then and see how we would figure out if our ankles in fact are tight. So you're saying we're going to put our foot close to the wall?
Yeah, start way back and show like a fail test, right? Yeah.
Okay.
So like there, and then try to touch it. Well, it's excessive.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the ability of your knee to be able to track ahead of your toe, keeping your heel down.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I start fairly close here, I'm looking at trying to get my knee to touch. So you can see I can do that comfortably. I don't feel like my heel is
and your heel's nice and planted on the ground, so that's fine.
Now you also want to make sure that your hip is in line with your knee. So if you feel like you're really leaning this way or this way, then you're cheating. Okay, so just give an eyeball, make sure your kneecap is tracking directly over your first and second toe, and your hip is in line, so you can see I can do that comfortably. So I'm going to move back a little bit now. Okay. Again. So that's about my range right there on the right leg.
That's pretty close. And you can see your heel starting to come up a little bit.
And I feel like I'm at my max right now. There's a lot of pulling in the bottom of my foot and in the back of my calf.
Yeah, so roughly speaking, like you'd probably be like to pass the test kind of thing, I'd probably have you slide forward like a millimeter or two, but for the sake of argument, like that's roughly the distance that your foot was from the wall. And then basically if you're at home, if you have a measuring tape or ruler or whatnot, you would just measure the distance between the toe and the wall. If you have any kind of, I forget what they call those, but trim on the bottom or something like that, you have to take that into account as well, because you want to go to the flat surface there. But if you're 7 centimeters or greater, basically you would have quote unquote normal range. And then, some people may be 9 centimeters, 10 centimeters, depending on their own individual flexibility. But if you're under 7 centimeters, that's basically where the deficit lies. And of course, you want to check both sides, make sure that you don't have one ankle that has better dorsiflexion or better range of motion than the other one.
Okay, so check on this one. So I can feel my
like there you're coming up there, so you have to go a little closer. I
can feel my left is a little bit tighter than right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you want to come forward a little bit.
There. And then you're looking to compare that right to left range.
Yep.
So you can see with me, there's probably a few centimeters difference between right and left. So again, a really simple way of assessing that motion of your knee tracking over your over your foot in that position that we require for to squat properly.
Yeah, because basically at the end of the day, what happens is if you don't have enough range of motion at the ankle, so you can't pitch your knees forward enough, you're going to have to compensate somehow by either leaning too far forward, like if you're doing a weighted squat, you're gonna have to lean too far forward, which is gonna put a lot of stress on the lower back, which some people have to do naturally anyways, but having a lack of range of motion in your ankle just kind of exacerbates that position. So if you're finding that it's not comfortable, or you're like, hey, every time I do this, it's really loading in my lower back, more so than anywhere else, or like I'm getting back pain from trying this. One of the things that is a common issue is that your ankle is too limited to prevent you from getting the proper position. So then the question is, well, how do you fix that, right? So obviously there are stretches that you can do for the calf, right? The idea basically being that you want your heel to drop below your toes or going into like that dorsiflexion position. You've got two main muscles that join together to form the Achilles tendon. You have your soleus and your gastroc. One of those muscles crosses your knee, the other muscle does not. So what that means then is that when you're stretching your calf, you have to do the stretch both with a locked knee position to get the one muscle and then a bent knee position to hit the other muscle.
Right. So first stretch would be with your knee straight. So again, making sure my heel is flat. The leg that I'm stretching is behind, and I'm gonna slowly lean forward. I really try and push my foot down into the floor and spread my toes as much as possible until I feel a strong stretch. I usually tell people about a 7 out of 10 in terms of stretch intensity.
Sure. Yeah.
And again, holding that for 30 to 45 seconds. I usually like to tell people a minute because, you know, people like to cheat. But you should feel like there is some change in that pull of the muscle throughout the time that you're holding it. So like I can already feel like I'm starting to get a little bit less pull, so I can actually lean forward a little bit more. I don't know if you can see that on camera. Okay, so that's with the knee straight. And then you want to repeat that stretch to get the second muscle group that goes behind the knee in this position. So all you're doing is bending the knee down and repeating the same stretch. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. So obviously, you know, so stretching the calf and stretching the Achilles tendon can go a long way to help a lot of things. Sometimes you do just have like a joint restriction. This is where you get more into consulting with someone who can maybe do some mobilizations on the ankle, like a physiotherapist or whatnot. There are mobs that you can do yourself at home, which we can maybe talk about if interest is there or whatever. But another quick way but apart from like dealing with the structure yourself, like stretching or mobilizing your ankle, one thing you can also do is you can introduce a little bit of elevation into your heel when you're actually doing squats, which will kind of compensate for any lack of dorsiflexion that you have. So it's pretty simple. If you're working out at a commercial gym or at home, just putting two small plates underneath the heel will put you into that position already. Or if you have special shoes that have a little bit of a heel counter that raise your heel up, they can work as well. But let's try a demonstration. So let's imagine the situation where your ankles are super tight for whatever reason, and you're trying to squat, but you're having a hard time. So you find you're pitching forward. So basically you're in the gym, right? You've got your 4 plates per side on the bar or whatnot. And you're really finding like as you're coming down, you really have to pitch forward. So you're putting a lot of strain on your lower back and you can't quite figure out why. You stretch your calf. This is the position that's happening quite a bit. So you're putting a lot of weight into the hips and the glutes and in the lower back, and you've got some weight on your back, so it's not a great position. So quick hack, quick fix is find a couple of plates, right? 5 pound, 10, probably like 10 pound plates if you're in the commercial gym kind of thing. You just want to put them underneath your heel. Right, so what that does is that elevates and pitches you forward a little bit, and it helps compensate or make up for the lack of dorsiflexion that might be in the ankle. So from there, when you're hitting your squat, basically because of this position here, I can maintain a more upright posture body. It's hard to do without a bar, so I'll just go like this. but I can maintain a more upright posture easier because I'm not putting as much, or there's not as much demand for dorsiflexion coming through my ankle. Whereas if I take that heel rise away and I come, see how I pitch forward a little bit and come up versus here, I stay much more upright. Yeah, 110%, of course, right? Because it's if you're lifting and you're focusing on, you know, proper mechanics and whatnot, and for whatever reason you have to go too far forward with the weight, you're putting a lot of excess strain and risk to things like your lower back. Whereas a simple heel elevation will allow you to train more safely. It's not really going to impact, like it's not going to change, you know, functionally how you work normally, kind of thing. Come on into the camera.
So I always tell people that, again, do a little bit, they always worry about like, well, am I going to get dependent on using this as a prop? And at the end of the day, we're really just trying to improve the mechanics of how your squat looks. So this is just a tool to work on retraining, or sort of not retraining, but recalibrating how your upper body should be when you have that proper amount of motion at your ankle. So it isn't something that you have to worry about being dependent on. It's just think of it as a corrective technique to improve your squat.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, using something like this, you're still stretching your calves, you're still working on mobility. Like there's a bunch of different things you can do to try to loosen your ankle up and improve the functionality. You're still improving like your strength, your postural muscle strength is improving, your, you know, obviously the prime movers, so your quads, hamstrings, glutes, like all the strength there is improving. And as you're practicing the movement, as you're practicing the exercise, you're probably naturally going to get better and better range of motion as time goes on. So you could do a point where, unless you have like a hard limitation that no matter how much you stretch, it's just never going to get better. There'll probably come a point where your squat technique and performance is improved such that you don't have to use a weight underneath you, or like a plate underneath your heel. You don't have to lift your heel up, kind of thing. But range of motion improvement, just like strength, can take a while to develop. So why don't you use something like this to help train and strengthen your body in better alignment and better posture and in a more a safer way, as you're also building up and working on some of the weak points.
Right. Makes sense. Right.
Yeah. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for part 3 of Squat Talk.